Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with 2 other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him. Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But Who the hell's Gilbert? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of GTF Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. We got a good one for you today. Everything is happening. There's coaches being hired, there's players being scouted, and there are rumors aplenty, which we know one man and one man only loves to shoot them down. His name is Greg Gabriel. Let's bring him in now. Greg, how are you, my friend?
What am I shooting down?
All of these darn rumors. There's this guy going.
Do I got an anti-aircraft gun around here or something?
That's right. There's a guy on social media saying, yeah, I can confirm what Brad Biggs first reported, that this offensive line coach will be signed. They're just working on details. And then Brad responds, yeah, he's coming in for a meeting soon. It's not nearly done. There's a lot of Bears insiders popping up all over the place. Greg, what do you make of all that?
A lot of what popping up? Wait a minute, I just got a text from that source I just said. He has not been onboarded.
Okay. All right. You guys should have been in the pre-production meeting. I'm talking to the people in the chat. I get all sorts of cool information from Greg.
There's a lot of stuff going on, like, Myles Garrett this morning. All of a sudden, we got to trade for him. He isn't available in a trade. He asked for a trade. And we do this. We've been doing this show almost 5 years now. Every year, there's players that want to get traded. Every year, those same players end up back with the team. Yeah, a couple of them end up getting moved. But, it's going to cost Cleveland a huge cap hit. He's their best player. He's the face of the franchise. Could he? Sure. But until they actually say, okay, we're willing to move him and listen to offers, there's nothing there. And they've already come out today and said, I don't care what he says, we're not trading him.
Mm-hmm. Well, now I see that C.J. Williams is saying that Brad Biggs is confirming Rauscher as offensive line coach. So that's going to send me.
Let me see that.
It just popped up on my timeline. Bears are expected to hire Dan Rauscher as offensive line coach per source. And that was 1 minute ago on the
because I know he had not resigned from Tulane as of an hour ago. But, formalities.
Exactly. Well, congratulations to him and congratulations to the Bears insiders who predicted that or guessed it or whatever. So
there was one guy I got, I'm in this group chat. So there's this one guy, I won't mention it. I don't want to embarrass him. But he claimed that the contract for Johnson was 6 years, 15 a year. So what's Courtney put out today? 5 years or 13 a year. But he got his from sources.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I don't mean to make fun of these people, but it clearly seems to me that many of them, if not all of them, uncertified insiders, are just making shit up. They're making good guesses or bad guesses in some cases, and so I'm a traditionalist. I still abide by what the true insiders, the true
That's
reporters
right.
who have for years and
You
years.
listen to quality people, and if it's not from them, then it's usually made up.
Yeah,
And so you can't go with it. Remember a few years ago, there was the one guy who put out Carson Wentz going to get traded to the Bears, if not today, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's 3 years later, and he still hadn't been traded. Almost 4. That was the year they drafted Justin Fields.
Yeah.
So
Unbelievable. All right, well, let's get into some of our main topics of discussion here. This coaching staff for the Chicago Bears is starting to fill up nicely. I saw in a post on X yesterday that you were approving of how the staff is going. I think you termed it like an all-star coaching staff.
What's funny is within an hour of Johnson getting hired, Schefter put out, and he's in the process of putting together an all-star cast or all-star staff. And so I posted last week, I said, Schefter said this and he wasn't lying. Because it really is good. Right now, you've got 3 guys on the offensive side that are past coordinators in the league.
Yeah. And he talked about wanting experience in the staff.
Okay, Johnson obviously was a coordinator. The new passing game coordinator is a Taylor. Press Taylor was a coordinator. 3 years was a coordinator. Bieniemy was a coordinator. And I mean, Bieniemy is a hell of a get. Now, he's had some hard times. And that, he leaves Kansas City. He's a rising star in Kansas City, goes to Washington as the OC, but, really not the best place to go to be the OC. I mean, Ron had the gun to his head. They're on verge of selling the team and stuff. So it just, it didn't work out well. And, he goes to UCLA. Now, my understanding that was always going to be just a 1-year gig, just to hold the fort while he got back in the NFL. And he was getting paid, it's like Washington was paying him anyway, not UCLA.
Right.
So, I mean, UCLA probably paid him $50,000, and then the rest is that gets offset against Washington. The same thing, like with Flus. Coordinators are making, a couple $1 million sometimes. Chip Kelly got $6 million reportedly from the Raiders.
Wow.
He probably said, "Well, I gamble a lot, so I need that much."
Inside information there, guys.
Anyway, but he's due $6 million or more from the Bears. Well, the Cowboys are going to sign him to like a $250,000, $300,000 contract and let the Bears pay it.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Regarding Eric Bieniemy, Greg, it seems like one of the big knocks against him, it's like players either love him or some really dislike him because he can coach in a harsh manner. What have you heard about his coaching style?
He's an old school coach, and he demands perfection. Personally, I like that. That's how I was coached. And everybody I was brought up with was coached that way. But the fact is that, you go to look at some of these complaints that they have. Well, he bombed at Washington and he bombed at UCLA. Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator. What's his job here? His job here is running back coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many people he's going to have under his tutelage? 5. Okay. Will he be involved in game plan? Of course he will. He's got that information. But, don't make more of it than what it is. What he's got to do is to go forward. He's got to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
And he's taking a step back. And, you got a case here where, I don't know what his relationship was with Johnson, but he worked with Poles a number of years.
Right.
So he's got a relationship there. So Press Taylor, there was people complaining about that one. Yeah, I was with Press not a long time, 6 months. He was on Chip Kelly's original staff in Philly. And Howie, who really scouts and studies coaches, liked him so much that after Chip got fired after 3 years, he made Doug Peterson keep him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then, he was under Peterson, he was the passing game coordinator and quarterback coach, I think. Then Peterson takes him down to Jacksonville and he makes him the OC. Peterson was really the OC. But the fact is, the guy's a good football coach. Okay. For whatever reason, things didn't work out in Jacksonville. A lot of that's on Doug Peterson. But you got another guy that has spent 12 years in the league now. I think this will be his 12th season. And he has worked for a variety of people or under a variety of people. He's had a lot of responsibility. His job here is passing game coordinator. And people seem to forget that. What's their job title? What are they being asked to do? Passing game coordinator really doesn't have a lot of work to do with individual players.
Mm-hmm.
He's working more with the coaches.
Yeah.
And involved in game planning to an extent. They probably doing a lot of it. It depends on what their assignment is from the offensive coordinator and the head coach, but they could be looking at a lot of doing a lot of advanced stuff. In other words, this will work in the passing game. This will work in the passing game. This will work in the passing game, and pass that on to the head coach and the OC.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what your passing game coordinator does.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Back to Bieniemy for a second. The Sports Illustrated reports that in 2023, Trey Smith, the offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs, spoke really well about Bieniemy and said that he was a great friend and coach. He watched him when he was in high school, and they had a friendship since then. And so, of course, that leads to speculation that perhaps Bieniemy, besides being a quality coach, is coming onto the staff with the help recruit Trey Smith to the Chicago Bears. Do you think that could possibly be true? Do position coaches sometimes get involved in recruiting free agents if Trey Smith becomes a free agent?
Yeah. I mean, you've got the so-called tampering period for 3 days. That's the only time they can officially talk.
Yeah.
But Ryan has a relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan was involved in drafting him. Obviously it's going to be a guy that they're more than likely to go after. Number one, does Kansas City let him go? And if Kansas City lets him hit free agency, are they going to do what they did with the corner last year and then try to do a sign and trade type deal? They got to have, in order to do that, in order to put the tag on them, they got to have the money in the bank to do it. The cap space available, because that's guaranteed money. So, and it's a pretty, be a pretty decent size figure. So I think if they give them the second level franchise, would be like the average of the top 8. And tackles, I think, figure into it. I'm not 100% sure of that but it's going to be 20 million on the tag. So that's once you get tagged, that's your starting point now. Okay, you want him? Okay, this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
But can they afford him? Yeah. They probably got to sign 2 offensive linemen and draft 2. But where is it that you draft the 2? That remains to be seen.
Right.
Could be they go defensive lineman in the first round and use the 2 seconds on offensive linemen. And they're going to have to get a wide receiver someplace because they're going to probably get rid of one of the wide receivers. And he's out of contract. He was getting 17, 18 million. They're not going to bring him back. Not at that figure.
Tim Richards, a Lions fan, says it'll be interesting to see how old Benedict Johnson can manage a game.
They can't get, they know what the problem is with Detroit. They suck so much for so long that they don't realize that when you have success, you lose coaches.
That's right. That's never happened.
What's even funnier is that the only guy getting drilled is Johnson. Aaron Glenn isn't.
That's right.
And Aaron Glenn stole more coaches off of that staff than Johnson did.
Yeah. That I'm surprised at that. Greg, I was thinking about this earlier this morning. The topic has been Ben Johnson commanding an entire football team, 50-some players and so forth. Should we be concerned or be thinking about him commanding a coaching staff, particularly some coaches who he's really never had a meaningful relationship with in the past? Have you, in your past, seen coaches struggle with keeping the coaching staff aligned? And we all know that it's usually the second year when a head coach has the coaches that he really wants on the staff. What do you think?
Well, I think he's putting together a staff that he really wants right now. To tell you the truth. There's some really quality. You look at his staff compared to some of the other new staffs, and just the experience and the notoriety that some of these guys have. Okay. He's done a hell of a job now. So,
that's good.
Antoine Randall, right away.
Yeah.
Al Harris, right away. Those guys are good football coaches.
Yeah. And they're culture makers. They're disciplinarians. Bieniemy and Randall L. You got some tough guys.
And Al Harris is.
Yeah, and Al Harris, another one. Yes.
But to get back to your question, part of that is hiring a defensive coordinator that's been a head coach twice and is going to be running the defense. That helps him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, you're the head coach of the defense, and he can spend it because he's got to put, if you think about it, he's going to strip down his offense. And I think when I think about that, the terminology is going to stay the same. There's going to be a lot of the same plays, but he's going to put in stuff that will fit DJ, will fit Rome, will adhere to the athleticism that Caleb has and the arm strength. Okay, and to try to incorporate Kmet the way that tight end at Detroit did. So it's really just playing to the strength. So you make adjustments in certain plays or whatever to fit that skill set. So I don't think it's as difficult as he made it sound, because you're still going to work. The base is going to be the same.
Okay.
It's building up from there to adhere or to play into the strengths of the players. And part of that's going to be who's the offensive line going to be. And we're not going to know who the offensive line is going to be for over 2 months between free agency and the draft.
Gotcha. Okay. One of our first questions is from Steve, and he says, Greg, what do you think about perhaps maybe hiring Antonio Pierce as a linebackers coach?
What I really think is that the remaining hires on the defensive side will be driven by Allen.
That makes sense.
Because that's his group. The offensive coordinator a lot of times has, in this case, Johnson is the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not Declan. Declan's got the title, but it's not his offense. So, I think Allen is going to be, or have a lot to say, because he knows what he wants to run. So he knows what the skill set that he wants in the coaches. Coaches teach certain ways. And so, you want them to be able to adhere to the way you're going to run your defense. Like this guy, the name came out, CBS put it out, the University of Florida defensive line coach is coming in for an interview. Maybe he already came in. Maybe he was in yesterday for all we know. That's a really good name. And then you pair him with Bill Johnson. And Bill's 69 years old this year. So Bill is, what I found out is his title is quality control assistant D line. Okay. Well, at 69, Bill might not want the rigors of the lead guy.
Right.
But I've seen this guy coach, and he is in the football world. He's a freaking legend. Okay. Like I talked about, the guy I work with in New York on Parcells' staff, Lamar Leachman. Well, Bill Johnson's kind of like the Lamar Leachman, maybe a little milder than Lamar was. But I mean, this guy has developed some really good players. How many coaches got 2 national championships in college and a Super Bowl championship on their resume? That's what this guy does.
Oh,
and a bunch of all pros.
That's pretty cool. So overall, you're happy with the way this coaching staff is being developed and how quickly it's being developed. The All-Star games were this past week. On Thursday, we had the Shrine Bowl game, which you have a part of. You're part of the committee there. And then on Saturday, we had the Senior Bowl game. Those coaching hires probably were not there because they're, busy with other responsibilities. So are they?
Pauls was only at the Senior Bowl one day.
Okay, wow, look at that. So they're pouring over tape pretty soon, right? Or
right.
I think
but you had your group there.
Okay,
and your scouts are there. It's the All-Star games by itself are an interesting topic because a lot of draft analysts make such a big deal out of the All-Star game, and why? It's really their first time seeing these people in person. They're not going to schools making school calls. So they get all hot and bothered about guys and start pushing them up. That's not reality. Okay. Reality is it's this much of the whole evaluation process. Yeah. He had a good week. Good. You hope he has a good week. There's an old saying that you don't want to hurt a guy off his all-star performance, but you can help a guy. So now, in a perfect case would be the kid from North Dakota State, Gray Zabel. Now, Gray Zabel played at FCS level. Okay, so he, I think, played one game against a P5 kid all year. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl and he shines at the Senior Bowl, and he's playing, a bunch of different positions. He's playing guard, he's playing tackle, he's playing center. His arms are too short to play tackle, even though that's what he played at North Dakota State. He had 32.5-inch arms. So he'll be a guard or a center in the league. But because he showed well against better competition, that helps him more than a guy, say, from Oklahoma or Alabama or something like that, because these guys are, you got a ton of tape of these guys during the year. And what they do during the year is the most important. What you try to find out is if you see something different, like from a receiver, maybe a guy played at a school that didn't have a good quarterback. And so you're going down there, he's got, you do a lot of one-on-ones and stuff. And so you're seeing him run some routes that maybe you didn't see him do in college. You can see his play speed. Is he able to get separation? But even more important than that is you get to interview these kids. And you get more than the 15 or 20 minutes you get at the combine. So, could you talk to a lot? Yeah. But there could be a handful of guys that you really want to talk to and spend some time with. And that's one of the things that's really, really important about these things. But you can't go overboard. And I've said this before, and we ought to start writing down names. Write down the names of the guys that are getting all the pub. Okay. And then see where they go on the draft.
Yeah.
More often than not, the guys who get the bump at the Senior Bowl, and then you got another guys who get a bump at the combine because they really worked out well. When they get drafted where they were supposed to get drafted.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, right?
Right.
So Gray Zabel is an interesting case because here's a guy, and I have to confess to you, Greg, I do mock drafts from time to time. I don't show them off because I use them more to kind of research players. So I get to the 5th round and I'm looking for an offensive lineman. And so 5 will pop up on the generator. And then I go in and read scouting reports on those 5 players to become acclimated with them. I don't study the tape because I don't know, keep your ass down, keep your shoulder here. I don't know that stuff. But it's an interesting way to get acclimated with players. So Gray Zabel, a week ago, he was going in the 6th round. There's no way now that he goes in the 6th round in any of these mock drafts.
And again, it's like I said, he was a small school kid,
right,
that jumps up in competition and shows that he's easily fits in. That he could have gone to Alabama and been a star player, or could have gone to Notre Dame and been a star player, but he was at North Dakota State. Now, the one thing, say, when you look at places like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, in that upper Midwest conference, they get a lot of these farm kids that nobody else was recruiting. And it doesn't mean they're not good players. They played at really small levels of competition in high school, and they've got the traits, but nobody knows about them. This kid, could have gone to a P5, actually P4 now, school this year, got NIL money, and he turned it down, which says a little bit. He probably got some money from North Dakota State. North Dakota State's got money now. I remember they used to have the Snow Bowl. It was like the FCS level All-Star game, and it was up in Fargo at Fargo.
I do remember that, yes.
Well, okay. Well, there's a couple of casinos up there, and you know where all the proceeds go? The athletic fund at North Dakota State.
It's fun times.
So it's they probably gave him a pretty, not say money probably could have got from a Big 12 school.
Yeah.
Probably a pretty decent hunk of change.
Pretty cool. All right. I don't know if you got a chance to, study much of the All-Star games, but out of the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl, any names pop up to you that you say, well, I got to do more work on this guy. This guy looks good. Or I'm hearing this and this about this player that you can share with us.
There's a receiver that I liked. I did him for an agent during the year from UNLV, Ricky White, he originally went to Michigan State. And, played 2 years at UNLV, put up big numbers. And he had a real good week of practice. Now, at the East-West, there had to be 25, 28 guys that practiced that did not play in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing happened in the Senior Bowl. I don't know if the numbers were as high, but the scouts are there for practicing. They aren't there for the game. They see the tape of the game, but they don't stay for the game. And they go for the 3 practice sessions, and then they get the hell out of Dodge. And part of it is they don't want to get hurt. And the agent's really making that decision. My guy, Newman from Michigan State. So, loved him during the year. And then he had like 30 3/4-inch arms at the East-West. Now he might come out at 31 1/4 at the combine because of the way they measure it at the All-Star games. But so I watched the one-on-ones, and he played guard, he played center. Now this kid was a tackle at Holy Cross. And the one thing that did jump out when you're seeing, you got the close-up, it was real close-up film for the one-on-ones from the East-West. He does have short arms. When you see him standing next to other linemen, you can see that he's got short arms. But he is really strong. And I don't think I saw him get beat. And so his arm length is gonna, I thought he was a late day 2 at worst, early day 3, and now with that arm length, he's going to be a day 3. But I'd be shocked if he doesn't make a team.
Yeah.
There's a guy I've liked all along that had a real strong week at the East-West, CJ West from Indiana. He only went to Indiana 1 year, was at Kent State. And he was an all-MAC player at Kent State, but a really disruptive guy. I kind of compare him. He's like a Billings type guy. Not quite as girthy as Billings, but that same type of guy can play the same position. You'll probably get him in the 5th round.
Excellent.
Maybe 4th, but there's a receiver, I can't think of his name, one of the receivers from Colorado, small, like he was 5'11" and 175 pounds or something, but fast as hell, getting out of cuts. And now that, the kid from the Senior Bowl, Beck, who got the MVP for the Senior Bowl. So everybody's bouncing, he's going to go real high. He's another Puka Nacua. Okay. And that's a great comp. Where did Puka Nacua go?
Gosh.
5th round.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And do you know why he went? Because his tape was excellent. Do you know why he went in the 5th round? He couldn't run. He ran a 4.57 or a 4.58. You watch this tape, and I watched a ton of tape of this guy yesterday. He can't run. He runs great. He is Puka Nacua. If he runs better than 4.55, I'll be surprised at the combine.
Jimmy Horn is the Colorado receiver?
No, another guy. And I can't get into their thing right now.
Well, that's fine. We'll continue to search and bring up his name. A number of other
Jimmy
names.
Horn's a little guy. He's only 5'7".
Yeah, he's really little, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of girthy guys, Samo, what's your opinion on the Kentucky defensive tackles who is 6'7", 340 pounds? He's not really girthy. I wouldn't describe him that way based on the photos I've seen of him. But Deion Walker, he seems like he had a good week at the All-Star game and could be a nice addition to the Bears. I see him being mocked in early day 3.
Yeah, I don't see him as a fit.
No,
I mean, and now obviously Dennis Allen. See, this will be an interesting thing too, and that brings up another thing I want to talk about that I sent you a thing on.
Yeah,
and that's the profile of the players. Okay, with the new coaching staff and some new schemes, there's going to be a different profile of the players, and so that is still to be determined. But looking at what Dennis Allen has coached over the years, a guy like Deion Walker doesn't seem like a fit. You know, he has played with bigger defensive ends than the Bears have, but the inside guys aren't. That guy, like Walker, is a guy that we would have drafted in Dick Duran's staff. Okay, more of a fit then, to fit with Ted Washington and Keith Traylor.
The big guys who make room for the linebackers to make tackles.
Right. And he just, I don't see him as being that athletic. He plays tall a lot. When he gets low, he does some things, but there's a lot of times when he stands straight up. And so when that happens, he's not getting the penetration. He's a good player. He's probably going to go in the second round. I just don't see him as a guy that the Bears would be interested in. I made defensive tackles. Okay, obviously Mason Graham, Walter Nolan, Grant from Michigan, Derek Harmon from Oregon, Sanders from South Carolina, Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, Alfred Collins, who's a big guy, can really move from Texas, Darius Alexander. I got Deion Walker's name down only because he's probably going to go in the second round. I got CJ West there. So those are guys that I think are a guy named Jefferson from SMU that are, more guys that'll fit into what I think is going to end up being the profile. But that brings up another thing, because I was twice last week. Spiegel and Holmes mentioned that, well, Ryan Poles has got to get the guys that Johnson wants in the draft. He can't just draft who he wants. No shit, Steve. That's first of all, there's one rule. You can never shove a player down a coach's throat. If coach is adamant he doesn't want a guy, you can't draft him.
Right.
Okay? Because that coach will find a way for that player to fail. But given it's this whole profile thing, now when the staff gets together, it's one of the first things they'll do is they'll draw up profiles for the different positions. And then that'll get transformed over to the current scouting reports. And guys that may have been a fit for Flus might not be a fit anymore. But you got to go through it. And then remember how we used to put a plus, a minus, or a nothing on our grade?
On your scouting grades.
Yeah. The plus is a guy who's a fit. So then you're going, and if there's a player that the coach really, you say the line coach says, I really want this guy after he works him out. Well, you got to listen to that. I'd send Harry out, and when Harry really liked a guy or didn't like a guy, Harry'd come back and say, no, Harry, his tape's pretty good. Yeah, I spent 3 hours with him. I can't put him in that room with the guys we got.
Oh, okay.
And that was, Olin, Roberto, Reuben Brown, John Tate, those guys. And so you got to listen. So if I say, no, Harry, we're taking him anyway, well, it isn't going to work. He's going to fail. So you're always working hand in hand with the coaching staff. Said Benson. Lovey had to have said Benson. Really wanted him. Then when he had him, he got pissed off at him. But yeah.
And you said you tried to talk him out of that, didn't you? If I recall.
Yeah, I at that point I was starting to go like, do you really? Well, you had Thomas Jones. Why do we want to go? Why do we want to do running back? And I think
that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, let's give Thomas another year.
See, everything is a collective opinion, and you talk these things out. Okay, I'm not going to win every argument. I'll give you a perfect one. The guy he wasn't dead set against it, but there was 2 or 3 guys that he wanted better. Was Jerry had Matt Forte further down than Ballard and me.
Wow.
And Ballard and me won. We talked about it. I remember the first game, Indianapolis. Remember Sunday night game, Indianapolis, and Forte goes 55 for a touchdown. Hey Jerry, see what we're talking about?
Love it. And another great story that you shared with us. This one was a few years ago. You shared it was the Brad Biggs story. Lance Briggs story. Lance was on the team for a year when Lovey came on.
Right.
And
Lovey said, "Oh, he can't play. He's too slow." Lovey, he can play. We know, Lovey found that out.
Yeah.
Because Lovey, he might time 4.78, but he plays 4.58, 4.55.
Yeah.
He's got great instincts. And Lovey just didn't know the player.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, that whole dynamic between scouting staff and / general manager and the coach and what they want. I mean, we could do a study on that thing.
You got to work together because you're all trying to do the same thing. Get the right players for the team.
Absolutely.
And it's not a competition. And that's why, I almost felt like calling the score and saying, Matt, not the way it works. It's not me against you.
Yeah. Right.
It's me
a
with
team
you.
effort. Indeed. Let's tackle a couple of questions here. Look who's here. It's Tom. I'm going to mess up your last name, Tom. Tom Papalardo. Papalardo.
I haven't heard from Tom in a long time.
Yeah, he's a great follow on X. He asks, what does Greg think about drafting Ariante Irsay? No, huh? Really?
I think he, to use a term I shouldn't use, he's stiffer than a wedding night dick.
Okay.
He's not a knee bender. And I know a lot of people got big grades on him, and I keep going. I called a friend of mine who's a scout. I go, I see these people putting big grades on him. I don't like him. He's stiff. And he goes, I'm with you. And in this scheme, if you look what Detroit did a lot of, they weren't strictly an outside zone team, but they did a lot of that, and the guys had to play in space. That player cannot play in that kind of offense. Okay. Personally, I think the Bears are set at tackle. I don't see a guy a tackle unless Campbell gets put on the rack and they stretch his arms out and he gets puts an inch and a half on his 33-inch arms and has 34 and a half at the combine. He's a guard. I mean, can you get by with him with 33? Yeah, but it's not ideally what you want. And when you look at it, and my fault, you see guys that are really talented, but going other guards, so you might not take them that high, but they're the best offensive linemen. The interior line class here is really, really good.
Love it.
The kid from Missouri, Mambo.
Yeah.
He was 6'3". Okay, he played right tackle for Missouri. 6'3 3/4, 330 pounds. Okay, at 6'3 3/4, he isn't going to be a tackle. He's a guard. But he moves really well, and he's strong. Now, he didn't do much down at the Senior Bowl. I guess
he got sick.
Yeah, he got sick. So, but that kid is really good. Now, the one guy, remember there's a couple guys we had questions about on measurables. They'd be, and one is Banks, and Banks we still don't know. We'll find out at the combine. And the other was Connerly from Oregon. So Connerly was listed as 6'4", 315 or something on the Oregon website. Well, he was 6'4 1/4", 6'4 1/8", with 34 plus inch arms at the Senior Bowl. Okay, he can play tackle at that time. You still may want to move him inside, but it's not he can't play. Like if he was 6'3 3/4, there's no questions asked. He's moving inside.
Okay.
But now he's an either or. If he was 6'5", there's no questions asked. Now he's also the guy that got run over by the green kid in that 1-on-1. But part of that, he just didn't have his feet planted right.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just took the hit at the wrong time. And when that happened, Jumbo Elliott, who was in camp, and a rookie defensive end going up against Jumbo, did the exact same thing. Of course, the next time they went against each other, Jumbo killed him. But
as he was prone to do. Howie R. Bears has an interesting question. He cites, first of all, Luke Newman's wingspan at being a pathetic 76.12 wingspan. And he asked you about wingspan being equally or more important than arm length.
Wingspan, you want it taller or longer than he is tall.
Okay.
Which, in that case, he is.
Oh, okay.
Because he's 75 and a half. And so he's longer by 3/8 of an inch. He's got short arms. There's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to be he's a center or he's nothing. Olin had 31.5-inch arms.
And what were the traits that Olin possessed that made him overcome his arm length?
He had a knockout punch. In college, too.
In more ways than one.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
No, because Olin wasn't big. He was 285.
Yeah.
Real strong, explosive. He'd go and practice and play tight end in practice sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd yell up to, Jerry's office overlooked the practice field. Jerry, make me a tight end.
I love it. You mentioned this last week regarding the USC center, that his arm length was just really.
He was like 30 3/4.
Yeah.
And he's 6'5". I mean, he's a real tall guy. Where Luke is 6'3 1/4. This guy's 6'5" and change.
So does that put Jonah on your minus list when you did your draft scores on players?
Yeah, with that measurable, he'd be a minus.
Yeah. So you'd stay away from him unless you took a flyer.
Well,
on him in the 6 or 7.
You'd let the coach have a say.
Mm-hmm.
And
of course.
If the coach said no, I can do it with him. Then you wouldn't make him a plus, because he can never be a plus, but you might make him a vanilla. Is
there any real value in the fact that Caleb played with Monheim at USC for a couple of seasons? Yeah.
They know each other.
That's about it.
Yeah. I think they'll try to get somebody in free agency. If not, then there's some people like the kid from Ohio State, and he got hurt. I don't know how bad he got hurt. I know he didn't play in the national championship game. That, it'd be interesting if, where that guy ends up being and how serious. I don't know what the injury was. I don't know if he tore up a knee or just had a sprained ankle or a sprained knee, but I know he didn't play in the playoffs. But it'll be interesting to see how he comes out. A lot of times your center come from day 3 guys. They're not day 1, day 2, and but if you can get a good one in free agency and it's not going to cost you 12, 13 million, who knows what this guy from Atlanta is going to cost.
Right. Dahlman,
right. I'm hoping he costs 8-9 million.
Well, that would be a nice price. I take him for that. Thank you, Maddie Focheesy, for moving up to the top of the list here with your donation and always retweeting our stuff. Really appreciate your friendship to the barroom and friendship period. He asks you, who would you take with the Bears' first 3 picks? And I know that's really, really difficult for you to do, but can you, at first round with number 10, let me ask you this, because I've been toying around with this idea in my mind. Potentially trading up a spot or 2 for one of the projected superstars in this draft on the defensive line, and that's Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, or Abdul Carter. It's unlikely.
Carter's not getting out of the top 3.
Yeah, highly unlikely. Correct. I totally agree.
And Mason Graham probably isn't getting out of the top 6.
Okay.
That remains to be seen, how he works out and stuff. That's just, what you hear now. And then things change when you get real measurables at Indy at the end of this month. But to go back, what would I do first 3 picks? Right now, nothing. Because you know me, I'm one step at a time.
Right.
What are they doing in free agency? And once we know what they do in free agency, then it's like, okay. And then there's also because it'll play into it. Is Ian Cunningham going to Jacksonville? Okay, there's some people that swear that's going to happen. And not people here, these are like national insiders that swear. Now, they hired Tony Baselli today as executive vice president of football operations. Basically, he's really the president of the club or president of football operations, but not the general manager. So he's like a Kevin Warren, but strictly football. So would that preclude somebody knowing that position there from Ian going there? The connection that people have, one of the connections, is that Cohen and Ian share the same agent. And there's a guy out of Nashville. I don't remember what his name is.
Well, that's not, I got a feeling this Cunningham to Jacksonville isn't going to happen. I mean, this thing is taking forever. And
the owner said last week, I'll have it filled by the 28th. That's the day I'm supposed to have it filled by. He said, I want Cohen settled in, get his staff together, then we're going to take care of the GM. So, the combine starts the 27th, so it's got to be done by the 27th. After that, you got to wait. Mm-hmm. You got to wait till after the draft. Well, take that back. You got to wait till after the draft to steal somebody from another team.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say if it's not done in 2 weeks, say by the 20th. What's today, the 3rd? Okay, so 17 days, 2.5 weeks from now. If it's not done by then, it's not going to, it won't be him. I just would be real concerned if I'm Ryan Poles, you're in planning, you got meetings and you're in planning stages.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want him sitting in on those meetings? You want his input on the players he's seen, but do you want him hearing everything else?
Yeah, I just think Jacksonville is going about this in an unorthodox way.
Yeah, that you won't get an argument from me. I just, but I did see that statement by the owner, and he said, "We're going to get it taken care of, but we're getting Liam taken care of first."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. There's some people that are high up the totem pole in the National Insider list that say he's going there.
Now, you texted me a few days ago, and you said, "Listen, we're if you were the Bears, you might contact Jacksonville and say, listen, we're getting to that point. We're talking free agents, we're evaluating Gators. You guys need to make a decision, or can the Bears say we will not allow you to negotiate any further with him?"
No, that's a GM job. They got to let them.
So they could just express their disapproval but not do anything.
Yeah, they
Understood.
they can't say no.
Well, Matty Fochisi is insistent that we do a mock draft just for the fun of it. You want to do it, Greg?
Yeah, when's the draft? Like the 24th? We'll do it like the 20th of April. No, really, Maddie. In all fairness and all honesty, I've always been my whole career one step at a time. Usually this week, when I worked for the Giants, I worked for the Bears, in Philly too. This week, up until the combine, or 4 or 5 days before the combine, gives the guys some breaks. You got your scouts in, you're putting your preliminary board together. It's not a final board, and you don't do it by best to worst, regardless of position. You're strictly, you go over by position. One day you're doing quarterbacks, another day you're doing running backs, another day you're doing wide receivers or whatever. You go through each position group and you line them up. And that can change. It can change because now in this group, the coach's report hasn't even been entered into the system yet. So he's going to have a play in it. The medical's going to have a play in it. His workout measurables are going to have a play into it. And some character stuff that you might have some, but you don't have enough. And then you do follow up on that. That's going to have a play in it. So a board that you see now put together over the next 2.5 weeks or so is not the same board you're going to see when they come back in April.
Yeah. I think you have said that the board is finalized like 2 weeks before the draft, right?
Yeah. You really do the same. I mean, every team's going to do it different. When I was in New York, we did it top to bottom. Okay. We did it by position again. And we had the guys on their levels. And then we talked about, okay, here's a scenario. We're looking at this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. These were like exercises we do during the day. Okay, who do we want first? Who do we want second? Who do we want third? Basically prioritize the players, regardless of the position.
We're getting a lot of good questions here. We may not be able to get to all of them, but we'll certainly try. I do want to, at least satisfy Matty because he gave us a couple of donations there. And I want to do it this way with you, Greg, if you will provide an evaluation. Let me share the screen here with Pro Football Network's mock draft generator. So in the first round, they have Travis Hunter going to the Titans, Sanders, the quarterback, going to the Browns, Will Campbell going to the Giants, Abdul Carter falling to 4, Cameron Ward, the quarterback, going to the Raiders, Mason Graham going to Jacksonville. I doubt that, but who knows? McMillan, the wide receiver, going to the Jets. James Pierce, the edge, going to Carolina. Mikael Williams, who Danny says if he's there at 10, Danny Shimon, the Bears should grab him. And now he's gone. So what we have left for the Bears at 10 is Ashton Genty, which you have said no way we're going to draft, right? Tyler Warren, no way you're drafting him. So Kelvin Banks, according to Pro Football Network, and it is our good friend Lee Platty, who does these rankings for Pro Football Network. I just did an interview with him. He's got Kelvin Banks as the next best player on the board, the offensive tackle from Texas. Luther Burden, we're not drafting a wide receiver in the first round. Booker and Cameron Williams and Josh Simmons are the top 4 offensive linemen.
Well, they don't have Membo down there, and Membo should be.
He should be. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
And they got like Mikael Williams. I'd argue with Danny on that one all day. The traits, yes. The production, no. He just doesn't have the production to take at that spot. That doesn't mean he's not going to go that high. He very could. And when you look at, Daniel Jeremiah, I listen to what Daniel does because of all the different connections he has. one of which is Ian Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
They work together in Baltimore. He's got Booker and I think you say his name Membo or Membo. Not because there's another Embo.
Yeah, MBOW. Yeah,
that from Purdue,
right.
but this is Membo. They got him; those two guys going in that level. Out of the two, the more athletic guy is the Missouri tackle, Membo. Booker is a killer, but he's not as athletic. So then it gets down to you get to a situation there now. Now your coaches play into it too. Who would your coaches rather have, based on what you're going to do?
Mm-hmm.
We did that. We took a lineman once, and okay, Harry, there's two guys you like there. Which one you want? And then like, do I got to do it? Yeah, Harry, you got to do it. So.
A number of people in the chat saw that scenario and said, trade down. If that's who's available.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's always, to me, it's too early to talk about the draft. Like I said.
I know, I'm twisting your arm here.
I know. I'm going back now over 40 years of doing this stuff. And it's like, in February, we're just putting names up on the board. And talking about them, and then we go on to the next step, and the next step is the combine. Okay, and now we're going to find out, the medical and how athletic they really are, that type of thing. Then there's the next step. What do we do in free agency? Who'd we lose? Who are we gaining?
I hear you.
And then you get done with that, and you go, okay, now we're going to get down and narrow it down. What we want to do in the draft.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's tackle some other questions.
I think there should be a law of the land. No mock drafts are allowed until after the first 4 days of free agency. Let's say March 20th. Okay.
At the very least, you cannot publish your on social media your mock drafts. That is something I'm tired of seeing.
You start seeing them in November. I go, come on.
Yeah, well, some people are already doing 2026 drafts over at some websites. Crazy. AW says, I read that Mason Graham may have 32.5-inch arms.
That's fine for a tackle.
That's fine for a defensive tackle? Okay. What are the traits that Mason Graham has that make him so viable as a defensive tackle who's going to excel in the NFL?
He's strong. He's athletic. He uses his hands well. He's explosive. He's instinctive. He makes plays. I mean, the guy's a hell of a player.
I love his tape. All right.
He can really, the way they play, similar to what the Bears were doing last year. And like, he could be the one technique, one play, and the three technique on another play. They do that. Even though the other guy is more of a pure one technique type guy. Now, see, that's the thing too. Now, let's say they sign a defensive tackle, another guy to pair with Billings or not pair with Billings, rotate with Billings. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in free agency, okay, that theoretically could take tackle. I mean, you're not going to pass a real good one, but that theoretically could take tackle out of the equation and put edge in. And, there's some really good round two edges. You got who the hell knows how to Zikaruku from Boston College, Landon Jackson from Arkansas. Jackson's more of a, if you look at what Dennis Allen has had in the past, he kind of fits that mold. Zikaruku is, he's 248 now. He'll probably max out. He's not quite 6'3", but he's got better than 34-inch arms. So he'll max out at about 260. Give him a couple, a solid 260, not putting on 10 pounds of bad weight. But that might not be till a second year. You got to see what's going to happen with Austin Booker. What happens to him in the off season.
How he grades out at the combine and so forth.
Well, no, not Tyler
I'm
Booker,
sorry, I got
Austin
the wrong
Booker, the
Booker.
Bears guy. So there's it'll just be really interesting how this all plays out. And part of it too is who's going to be the defensive line coach.
Exactly. A lot of stuff. Okay, let's tackle a couple more of these. Samo asks, could Dennis Allen, who likes to blitz his linebackers, find some value in Noah Sewell? Sewell excelled at blitzing from that linebacker position at Oregon.
Yeah, I can't answer that. I mean, to me, he's been a disappointment so
me
far.
too.
So now, okay, you wiped the slate clean. You got a new coaching staff, and now you see what he can do, and go from there. So he's an athletic guy. I mean, reality. I mean, he's been hurt a lot. That doesn't help him. And even when he's been healthy, he's been a healthy scratch and not dressed. So, you got the off-season program in the beginning of camp to jump out, and then we'll find out. But I can't sit here and say yay, nay, or whatever.
Right. I happen to disagree with Rick on this. He says offensive tackle is the Bears' greatest need.
Milam will not play tackle. Rick, I'll tell you that right now.
Why?
32.5-inch arms.
Oh, okay. And what about Donovan Jackson? You like him?
He's the guard from Ohio State that played left tackle.
Right. Yeah.
When Simmons got hurt, 6'3.5".
Yeah. And Abdul Carter really made mincemeat out of him in their matchup this season. But do you think that offensive tackle is the Bears' greatest need? I think it's the interior line.
No, it's interior. I mean, hey, let's be honest. Okay. Rocher is going to have a big say in this, and whoever his assistant is, he's going to look at the tape. And the guy you can't throw out is Amagaji. But he stunk when he came in. Yeah,
it's got to be
got thrown to the Wolves, and he had no camp. And when you have no camp from a guy who played at the FCS level, that season's a wash. He probably never should have even been playing. But he should have been IR'd all year. But when you look at the athleticism, the length, the size, the strength, it's all there to be really good. Now it's learning how to play. When he gets beat, it's not because he physically gets beat. He gets beat because positioning, his feet are, his footwork isn't right. All that's coachable.
People are pointing out that I read that last message from Rick incorrectly. He is saying that the interior line is the biggest need. Gotcha, brother.
Milam, I would consider in the second round, and the other guy. I don't know if he's second. He might be third. He really played well at left tackle, which I think helps his cause. Actually on tape, he sometimes looks better at tackle, but he'll never play tackle. When you're playing inside, you're playing against some grunts. And so you got to have some heft to you. That's why somebody asked me, did I think Braxton could play guard? And I don't, I wouldn't rule it out, but I just don't see it. He's a tall, kind of linear guy. And, when you're going up against those shorter, big, wide bodies, and he already has trouble anchoring, it's just not a good position for him. To me, he's a tackle. And hey, if Amagaji ends up beating him out, then he's a swing tackle, and he got a hell of a swing tackle.
Indeed. Danny Shimon believes that Darnell Wright should be moved to right guard if there is a viable right tackle available in the upcoming draft. What are your thoughts about moving right inside? Danny claims that he's an instant Pro Bowler quality or guard because he's more suited for the inside, just like Tevin. He correctly said that Tevin Jenkins was not a tackle and would be better in the interior. Do you think he's right about Darnell Wright?
I haven't given it any thought, but it's like, okay, who are you going to put it? Who are you going to draft at right tackle?
Yeah.
Like the kid from Arizona, and I can't say his last name. He's a guy whose tape was really good. Then he goes to see
Jonah Saviani.
Yeah,
like
whatever. Well, he's 6'3" 3/4. So, those guys are playing inside.
Yeah. J2K says it's far easier.
And then somebody else said, well, they should take Simmons from Ohio State. Okay, when he was healthy, his tape was pretty good. But he tore his ACL. When's he going to be ready? And remember what happened with Amagaji, because the same thing, if he isn't ready to play and he misses camp, his rookie season is a wash and you wasted a draft pick.
Have you heard anything about Braxton's injury, the timeline on that, the severity of the injury?
I think he's good.
He should be ready for April?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
as far as I know.
Walter had a question regarding free agency. The Bears have, I just looked it up a minute ago, about $63 million in cap space. And so he wants to know, how many big names do you think we could sign with our cap space?
Well, yeah, I also only got like 40-something players.
Exactly. So maybe
not even that, 30-something. So one big signing.
Yeah, I agree. Trey Smith, and then after that, you're
or it could be him. I mean, hey, I wouldn't count out Becton, Mekhi Becton.
Yeah.
The way he played this year.
Yeah, he played really well. Indeed.
Obviously the center, but again, that's going to be, these guys, Roshar could come in here and say, I like this guy who you already got, and Bates and say, yeah, this guy's better than what I've had in New Orleans or something like that. I'm just, throwing a dart at the wall here. And so, again, we got to let this stuff play out.
Indeed. Day by day kind of process. A few more questions and then we'll pull the plug. Slick wants to know your thoughts on Trapillo from Boston College. He's a 6'7" left tackle. I think his first name, I think I looked it up here. What is his first name? Sam, is it Sam?
Yeah, I did him real early. I can't remember what I had. He flashed down at the Senior Bowl. To me, I think I got to go back and look, was like an early day 3 on him.
Okay. He's got some excellent measurables, so it's going to be worth at least based on what we know. It'd be interesting to take another look at him. Levante says you can open up more cap space by restructuring contracts. No,
there's no question, and there could be guys that are on the roster that are making money that they don't bring back. They got to make a decision on Everett. And that guy's making. Let me get in here to over the cap.
And while you're doing that, I'll say to OKC, we talked about Myles Garrett coming to the Chicago Bears in a potential trade. Unlikely to happen given the contract structure. Do you really want to put that much money into 2 defensive ends when your offensive line is in dire need of a superstar? So Myles Garrett on the Chicago Bears would be a dream, but it would be a nightmare for the cap issue.
Okay. Cap number for Everett this year is $6.5 million, and if you get rid of them pre-June 1st, you get a $5.5 million savings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think DeMarcus Walker is kind of a fit for what
Big
Allen has
DE
done in the past.
Right.
I'm just going through here. They got to make a decision on Bates because he really wasn't healthy all year. Just going down here, Dominique Robinson. He's not. He saves you $1 million. I don't. You might not even bring him back. Sewell, they got to make a decision on.
Bears are not going to cut Ryan Bates, are they?
I mean, they. I don't think so. But you got. He really didn't show up last year. What did he play in 2 or 3 games?
Right, but because of injuries, not because
right.
He was...
But it's the funny thing is that he never got hurt in Buffalo.
Thank you, Keith Lutz. Keith, let us know when you're posting your next article on Patch, and we'll let our followers here know. Thank you for the
there's other names. Really, the biggest name that jumps out that would be Everett.
Mm-hmm.
You got a cap hit. There's people that don't like Tremaine Edmonds. You got a cap hit of $13 million if you get rid of him. So. But again, that's up for the coaches to decide.
Yeah. All right. Let us go back here. There were a few good ones. And Mr. Inglewood says, can the Bears retain Tevin Jenkins or do they just want him out the door? You got to believe that his time is up, right?
Yeah, I'd be shocked if they offer him 5 cents.
5 cents, geez.
No, I mean, yeah, when he's healthy, he's a good player. He's not a very good pass blocker. He's a good run blocker. But he's missed 21 games, parts of others. It's funny because, one of these fake insider accounts said, well, they're going to let him go because his agents asked for $12 million. Well, I know his agent, and that isn't true. And so, he might, people say, well, give him a 1-year prove-it deal and incentives. But that's easier said than done because, he's been at least a partial starter for all 4 years of his career.
Mm-hmm.
He's played good when he has played, but you got to, now you got a staff here and they want to get a reliable offensive line. And if there's one thing Tevin Jenkins hasn't been is reliable.
Indeed.
Okay, not taking anything away from his ability, but he hasn't been reliable. And you look at the teams that are, go deep into the playoffs, like Detroit. They had the same line, except for one guy. They had the same line all year. Buffalo's had pretty much the same line 2 years running. One lost game on the offensive line over the last 2 years. So Tevin's got, when you take in the partial games that he's missed, it's like 25 games. That's like 6 games a year. And to me, how can you keep that? I think he's going to end up not get much in free agency. He'll get a 1-year, this is a guess. I could be totally wrong. He'll get a 1-year deal, $4 million, and he's going to have to stay healthy for them to extend him. And if he doesn't stay healthy, they'll move on. He'll be a free agent again.
Interesting. I believe there's going to be some team that really likes him and is going to offer him, a 1-year prove-it deal, but it will be enticing enough for him to jump on it.
I just don't think I can't see somebody paying more than $4 million. I mean, Billings has always been a good player.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what Billings is making right now?
I think it's about 6 or 7.
No, he isn't making anywhere near that.
Really?
They're stealing him. Let me get his contract.
I thought
how about $2,060,000 and a prorated signing bonus of $1 million. So his cap hit for the year is $3.2 million.
Wow, that is stealing
them. But so now you get a guy like that, And you're going to give Tevin Jenkins
Mm-hmm.
tons of money.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Ryan Bates, was a starter not in 23, or not in 22, but in 21 he was a full starter, or 22 rather. He was a full-time starter, and 21 in Buffalo. He got $4 million. His contract that was matched by Buffalo was 4 years, $4 million a year.
Hmm.
Okay, so, and he was a reliable player.
Mm-hmm.
Just all you got to do is you look through the contracts that the different linemen have, and then say, okay, what are you going to get? But now Trey Smith, there's a couple guards that got some big money, and Trey Smith is, he hasn't missed any games.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Pro Bowl level guard, so he's going to get $20 million.
And he had blood clot issues when he came out of college, which is why he was drafted in the 6th round. But that hasn't been an issue at all in his pro career.
No.
Interesting. Okay, I got an interesting question here from A10 Warthog. He says, which Bears are up for extensions? And so I did a quick check. Tell me yes or no, would you extend this player, Kyler Gordon? That's got to be an absolute yes, right?
Well, you can start. I mean, theoretically, you can extend him today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, the season's over for him, so yeah, you can do it. Yeah, he is. I closed out the roster.
Jaquan Brisker is another player.
Brisker is, but Brisker's got to prove he can keep his head on.
Yeah. I don't think you should extend him. I hate to say
it.
I
agree with you.
There's
Braxton Jones is up for an extension. I think you wait and see what happens this year with him.
And then Doug Kramer and Elijah Hicks are the other ones.
No, you don't extend either one of them. No, I mean Hicks has become a decent player. Could you do 2 years at Mar or something like that?
Mm-hmm,
yeah, because he's really a backup, but he's had to play because of Brisker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Greg, one of the things that I've been doing some research on, because I'm going to do a video on, is Hall of Fame quality players. The last 2 times, the only 2 times the Bears have been to the Super Bowl, is they had future Hall of Famers. When your team went to the Super Bowl, you had Brian Urlacher, Devin Hester, who are already two guys in the Hall of Fame, and we will probably see another 2, maybe 3 in the Hall of Fame. The 1985 Chicago Bears have 5 Hall of Famers on their squad that won the Super Bowl. This current team, needs some Hall of Fame quality players in order to propel.
I don't like to use Hall of Fame because part of that's luck and part of it's longevity.
I hear you.
But Pro Bowl level players. Okay, Jalen is that level. Bynum is that level, but not anymore. He was
right.
Caleb could be. DJ is. Rome could be. Actually, I'm really anxious to see what a good offensive line coach does with Wright.
Yeah, because we need to get more out of him. There's no doubt.
Well, he and that was the thing with Braxton, is that Braxton kind of leveled off and Wright kind of leveled off. Okay, was that them? Or was that the coaching and the scheme?
Right. Yeah, I will forever think that there was a poor marriage between the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator. It was an arranged marriage.
When they brought in Waldron, they were going to let the offensive line coach Simo do what he did the year before, and then Waldron kind of tore it up. And maybe that's one of the reasons the run game wasn't as good as it was the year before.
Exactly. J2K wonders if Darnell Wright could move to left tackle. You see him having those qualities?
No.
Yeah. Howie agrees with you.
He's played one season at left tackle out of need at Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Alaric Jackson is a name I keep hearing a lot. Kay says sign him to a 5-year, $100 million contract, and he's your left tackle for the near future.
Okay. Well, how many guys can you do that to?
Exactly.
There's two linemen, and I keep mixing up him. There's another one they signed in free agency like a year ago that played for Detroit, and he's been a bust. But he's an interior guy. This guy's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
So, I mean, could they? Yeah. But again, it's going to be these coaches are going to come in. They're going to start looking at the tape, and they're going to say, I can do this with him. I can make this guy work. I got to replace this guy. And then you're going to see it play out in free agency, who they go after in free agency, and then after free agency, obviously, who they draft. But I go back. Remember, I said a couple of weeks ago, and I might have brought it up again last week too. The big left tackle, and I can't think of his name, from Philadelphia, the Australian kid.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
So, never played football in his life, and they drafted him in the 7th round. He, Australian rules football guy. Took him 2 years to learn how to play before they could, safely put him in a game. And then, and I started looking at the traits of Amagaji and going, they ain't a whole lot different than that guy. But that's coaching. Now they got one of the best. Jeff Stoutland is one of the best offensive line coaches in football. Jeff did a remarkable job. It still took time. And Amagaji at least has played, but the loss, his missing camp last year did so much to slow his development. That when he got thrown to the Wolves, he just wasn't ready because he didn't have the live reps. People got to realize once the season starts, live reps are done. You get 12 or 13 padded practices the rest of the season. Why do you think they do so many damn walkthroughs at the end of the year?
Yeah, right. Jordan Mailata, I believe is his name from the Eagles.
Now that guy, though, never played football until after he was drafted.
He's a monster, I'll tell you that. Let's see.
He's a little taller than, Amagaji's like 6'5" 3/4, and this guy's about 6'7". And this guy's probably was 350 back then. I don't think he's 350 anymore. But and Amagaji's like 3 1/4. But long arms, very athletic. Amagaji's got that real big butt that you want to go along with the feet and the athleticism. So, I mean, yeah, I'm a trait guy. I admit it. He's got the traits. He's got the brain. Now he needs somebody to coach him.
Let us
agree or
see.
Disagree?
I agree. I totally agree. It was interesting that, Matt Bowen. Didn't he play with the Bears when you were there?
No, Matt played for the Bills. Matt and I worked together at National Football Post.
Oh, okay.
He's a good friend. He coaches at one of the Catholic schools, western suburbs.
Yeah, and he got into a discussion with somebody who said, the person was saying the tape tells all, and Matt was saying, no, for a lot of young players, it's much more important to have the traits. Because when you're talking high school or in some cases college, they're going up against competition that's nowhere near the level of NFL. So they could be dominating on tape.
Oh yeah,
but if they don't have the traits, it's probably not going to translate to the National Football League.
If you don't have God-given talent, you got the height, you got the weight, you got the length, you got the bone structure, you got all that stuff is God-given. You can't create it. Okay,
Right.
yeah, that's your traits. That's your starting point. So what
Mhm.
you could say with Amagaji right now, he's a big block of clay. Now you need a hell of a coach who's a sculptor who can carve it out.
Yep. And hopefully, Dan Rauscher, newly signed by the Chicago Bears, is that sculptor. J2K wants to know about Chase Young. He played well with Dennis Allen. Do you think he might be an option for the Chicago Bears? Your
Could
thoughts
be.
on?
I mean, yeah, it could be.
The thing with Chase, it seems like what's going on in between his ears isn't really that much about football. As compared to other players who have those great traits, it just appears like he's not.
Well, he had a horrific injury.
Oh,
Number
okay.
one.
I forgot
Okay.
about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, he had a great rookie year, and then he had a horrific injury, and it took a long time to come back.
Yeah, that's right.
Poles was interested in trading for him, but they wouldn't give up the medical reports,
Oh,
and that's how they ended up getting Sweat.
Montez. Yeah, interesting.
So, but then they had an opportunity to sign him last year, and they passed. Now, to answer the one person's question, Dennis Allen's lived with him for a year, so he knows him. So yeah, what Dennis says will be very important if they make that decision to go in that direction.
J2K says Chase had 66 pressures, fifth in the NFL last season.
First of all, if those are from PFF, I don't believe them, but not because I don't know where they get their stuff. We've talked about that 1,000 times.
Indeed.
But yeah, he played pretty good football last year at New Orleans, no question.
Didn't have the sack total, but he was a presence.
Did he have like 7 sacks or something?
Okay.
Let me look.
There are a lot of people who have been talking about Josh Sweat too, so we want to get your thoughts on him after we finish with Chase Young here.
Well, there's a guy Buffalo has that's a free agent coming up too, and it's not a big name. First, let me get who did he play for? New Orleans.
Somebody in the chat is going to beat you to it. I know it. Come on.
Of course they
Give
will.
us the numbers.
Because I got a slow computer because I got a bunch of windows open here.
You're like me. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Chase Young had 5.5 sacks.
Chase Young 5.5? Okay.
31 total tackles, 5.5 sacks.
He'd probably get up to 8 or 9 if he's opposite Montez. Interesting.
Granderson also had 5.5, and they were and Brian Brisset, who was a tackle, was their leading sacker, was 7.5.
Mm-hmm. So he's a risk, all right, with the knee. Issue.
Well, that's why you needed the medical. You want to find out if there's arthritis in there and the stability of the knee and all that. Let me just say, I'll tell you the guy I'm talking about from Buffalo.
Your Bills. And I my follow-up to that is, what about the medicals? We have, of course, the Ogunjobi issue here in Chicago.
They don't have right now. They don't have an orthopedic doctor they're interviewing because Dr. Bowen has retired.
Good for him.
Dwayne Smoot.
Oh, Dwayne, of course, yes, good player.
Illinois player. Okay, so Smoot had a pretty decent year for Buffalo, playing in the rotation. Let me see what his numbers were. Well, he only had 1.5 sacks. 16 total tackles, 1.5 sacks.
Okay.
I know he's talking about the one guy was talking about, the Philadelphia player.
Josh Sweat.
Yeah, who had, let's see what he had.
Yeah, I think
he was playing in a rotation.
Right.
Yeah.
Could have had Smoot last year, according to Gustav.
Yeah, but Smoot was coming off an injury. That's why you didn't get him.
And Carl
Okay,
was
Josh
going
Sweat
back.
is listed as a linebacker there because it's Fangio's defense,
Mm.
and he'll be 28 years old in March.
Good
So
age.
age is okay. He only had 4 sacks. No, I take that back. Regular season he had 8 sacks, 4 against the NFC.
Howie says
31
that
total tackles.
Josh Sweat is going to Arizona to be with his past coach. That's his feeling. The best to get is leaving Dallas. They can't afford is he loves Howie R. Bears says Osa Odigawusa. I don't know what that means, age 6, but Howie has been pushing for Osa, a player I don't know much about. All right. Well, let's see if we got one more last question to end this show. Oh, a T3P podcast asked, was Greg there when Matt Forte
Yes.
was drafted?
Yeah, we
What
were
was
talking about that earlier.
what was the feeling on Matt? So you said that there was some disagreement regarding Matt.
Oh, no, it wasn't on draft. It was in the leading up. There was Ron Turner was there. Tim Spencer was the running back coach. Myself, the area scout for each one, and Jerry were all in the discussions. And Ballard and I were real big Forte. Tim Spencer was a Rice for Rutgers. I think Jerry was a Rice guy too. Turner was like, whoever you guys want, I can do something with either of them.
That's nice. To have a coach like that.
And Rice might have gone before. Doesn't matter. But, Forte was going to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was just like, does he stay on the board? See, now he had an ACL in college, and that we had going for us.
I didn't know that. Forte has always been one of my favorite Bears running backs because of his pass catching abilities, and I kind of grew up admiring the Bill Walsh West Coast offense where they were dumping the balls to Roger Craig and so forth. And Forte was just so damn good at catching the ball in open space and making defenders miss. Great acquisition.
In this year's draft, who is, I don't know if he's going to be quite as big as Matt was coming out. But his name is LaQuint Allen from Syracuse.
Yeah, did really well. That's
got like 100 pass receptions the last 2 years. Really good pass receiver. He's not as fast as Matt. He's quick. He's shifty. You look at him and you go, well, he's not a power guy, but then you watch the tape and he's got some strength. Ran for just under 1,000 yards, but he had like 60 receptions this year and 40 something last year. Really good receiver. And he could return kickoffs.
He was at the Shrine Bowl game, and I read some really good reports on him. Or was it Senior Bowl? He was at the Shrine Bowl, right?
He was supposed to be at the Shrine Bowl. I thought he ended up going down to the Senior Bowl, but I'm not sure.
Either way,
but a good player. I mean, he had another year. He could have gone back, and what happened was a NIL agent contacted me. So he's not licensed to be a player agent in the league. He had a couple guys at Syracuse. He asked me to do them. This was one of them, and I wrote it up in a way more of like the pros and cons instead of like a regular player. You go, okay, this is how good he is, and if he stays in school, this will happen. If he comes out, this will happen. And really, if I didn't see a big difference for the kid, being that he's a running back, that he was going to help himself staying in school, and he was, being that he's a running back, taking the risk of getting hurt. Because, he's going to be mainly a third down back guy because of the way, a change of pace guy, third down guy because of the way he can catch the ball and he can return kickoffs. So they decided to come back, and then they had a receiver there, and I can't remember the receiver's name. He went back, got a pretty good NIL package. He kind of reminded me of that slot receiver the Bills have, the kid from Boise. And,
I love that guy.
Yeah. And who they got in the 5th round? I mean, you can always get
Khalil. Is it Khalil?
I can't think of his name right now. So not quite as fast as that guy is.
Shakir.
Yeah. Shakir. he is not quite as fast as Shakir, but the same type of receiver.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hey, J2K has a question here about drafting a running back. I saw you comment on one of the Willis twins mock draft, and you said there's no way I would draft a running back that early. And J2K says, what is the earliest you draft a running back? And
Day
do you
3.
have a list? Do you have a list of day 3 guys that you'd suggest?
Well, I don't know where most of them go day 3 because they're running backs.
Right.
It's not
right.
Let me put it this way. Not that they're deserving to go day 3.
It's
There's
just
day 2 guys that go day 3 because they're running backs.
right.
Okay.
And especially in such a deep class, right?
Right. I mean, I got that I've done stuff on, and I still want to do small 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17 guys here, and I haven't done every. And these guys I've done, and a bunch of those guys are going to be day 3 guys.
Yeah.
I
give me a couple of names.
Like Genty and Johnson and Hampton, they're going to be
Day 1 or 2.
Day 1. Hampton and Johnson a chance at day 1. But then you got the 2 Ohio State guys. Then you got Junkins from Jordan James from Oregon. You got Junkins. I got to tell you a guy that doesn't get any pub that's really good is Devin Neal from Kansas. Mm-hmm. Really a good player. Your favorite Scatterbo.
Mm-hmm. Cam Scatterbo.
Yeah. Kyle, and I don't know how to say his last name, from Rutgers. Monagai or something like that. Trevor Etienne from Georgia. Ross from Texas A&M. Sanders from South Carolina. Khalil Mullings from Michigan, who's a big guy that really moves well.
Mm-hmm. Have you done Taj Brooks
from Texas Tech?
I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a good player. Smith from SMU. Allen from Syracuse. There's a Sampson from Tennessee who can fly, but he might only be 195, 200 pounds. I mean, that's a ton of good backs. And it's like, my thinking is this, and you don't take a back real high unless he's the final piece to the puzzle. Years ago, yes, not anymore.
Right.
And right now, this puzzle isn't even halfway put together. So why would you got to take the more valuable, using the value of the position, the more valuable positions right now, when you know you can get a good player on day 3. Who might be better than the 2 guys they got.
There is one thing, and a couple of people have brought this up in the chat, is with the play of Saquon Barkley and other running backs, the value of running backs seems to be rebounding.
They got to be special. You got to have special to you.
So is Ashton Genty potentially special?
There's people who want to say so. I'm not going to put him in the same category as a Barkley. I'm not going to put him in the same category as the kid from Texas who went to Atlanta, and then Gibbs. He's good. Don't forget now he's playing at Boise, so he's playing at a little less level of comp. Look what he did. I mean, he had 100 yards against Penn State, but he really got stopped most of that game.
Yeah, the first half he had nothing. Yes,
Right. So
and they were behind,
he's
and so
very good. I'm just saying, he's not Barkley, he's not Gibbs, he's not, what was the kid's name who went to Atlanta from Texas?
Jeez, my mind is not
And
working today.
the guy Roshan Johnson backed up.
Yeah, exactly.
But those guys they got special to them. Now, somebody may say Genty is special. Just my opinion, he's not special like that.
Yeah. Bijan Robinson, thank you,
Yeah.
chat room. I agree with that. Now, the one thing that's interesting is that those final pieces for the Lions were signing David Montgomery as a free agent as your power back, and in that same year, drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, I think in the top 15 picks, maybe top 10.
12 or 13, I think they got it.
Yeah.
But then they already had their line set.
Absolutely.
Their wide receivers were set. Their quarterback was set. Okay, what do we need?
Exactly.
And they also drafted a complement to Monty, somebody who's a totally different style.
Yes,
runner.
yes. So assuming that DeAndre Swift is safe, the Bears, if they draft a running back, it's probably going to be a power back. Correct?
I can't answer that. You gotta.
They're not going to draft another speed back unless they really fall in love with
one. Roshan is a power back.
Yeah.
It's
whose stock, in my opinion, is going down.
Well, he had
injury issues
this year. I'm not. Some of these guys here might be a lot better football players than we saw last year, given what was going on. And don't forget, a running back isn't worth a damn without an offensive line.
Yeah, indeed. That's the key. All right. This has been an hour and 47 minutes of fun football talk with Greg Gabriel. He and I will be back here next week. I hope that you will join us.
Might not be Monday, might be Tuesday, but that's all right, right?
Tuesday actually would be better for me. I got a very busy week. My daughter and her husband and their son are moving in for a week because their new home that they just purchased won't be available to move into until
they're going to have boarders.
I'm going to have boarders, yeah, and I am looking forward to it so much to play with my grandson for an entire week. It's going to be great. So you won't be seeing much of me this week. But stay tuned on the bar room here for more programming. Greg, how often do you get the grandkids over?
Well, Robin's grandkids that we see all the time. Mine in Buffalo don't see that much.
Once or twice a year, maybe?
Yeah, no. And we talk on the phone, but and FaceTime and stuff. And I'd love to because they just crack me. Because the little guy, Jace, he just gets on there and he goes, Papa, and it's like, oh, shit, it just, you melt.
Indeed. Thank you, D. Starren. Yeah, I'll be melting a lot over the next few days. So really looking forward to it.
And enjoy.
Yeah, and you take care, Greg. And for everyone in the chat, thanks for joining us live. Thank you to Maddie and Keith for the donations, and we will see you all here real soon. Take care.
See you later. Thank you.